Danas ćemo se nastaviti baviti onom temom koja jest glavni sadržaj, ali naravno i šire od toga, riječke luke kao ulaznih vrata koridora Jadran-Baltik, govoriti o unapređenju prometne infrastrukture, o inovativnim tehnološkim rješenjima, dobrim iskustvima iz svijeta, primjerima koji će i nama, vjerujemo, pomoći. A naravno i vaša pitanja su dobrodošla, predavači su otvoreni za sugestije nakon što nam iznesu svoja iskustva, svoje informacije i što bi se reklo last but not least imat ćemo i pauzu za kavu. Prva je već u 10 sati evo ovdje na terasi, danas je nešto malo lošije vrijeme, ali dobro je dok nema kiše. Predlažem da krenemo sa prvim pozvanim predavanjem za danas. Kao što rekoh, onaj okvir, glavna tema jest riječka luka kao ulaz na vrata koridora Jadran-Baltik, mogućnosti i izazovi. A prvo predavanje će nam održati dr. Pietro Evangelista koji dolazi iz Napulja, to je Institute for Research on Innovation and Services for Development. Viši istraživač koji dolazi sa jednom ovako biznis pozadinom ovdje, biznis ekonomist, bavi se pomorskom logistikom, ICT rješenjima, pa ćemo upravo i poslušati predavanje naslovljeno Reshaping the Logistics Service Industry, ICT and Sustainability Innovation Challenges. Dr. Pietro Evangelista, evo već za pozornicom, pa predlažem da ga poslušamo. Here we are.
Okay, thank you very much for your introduction. I suppose you say most of myself. As I understand, nothing, because I don't understand Croatian anyway.
I understand English.
Okay. So I go straight to the focus of my presentation of this morning. The topic is related to logistics service industry, and my idea was to provide a picture of what the logistics service industry is today and what are the future challenges that probably have a tremendous impact on the future of such very important industry for the economies of many countries in the world, from developed and underdeveloped countries. So I prepared a very small agenda for this morning. So I will start talking about what are the main changes in the supply chain scenarios and what are the associate evolving role of logistics service providers. Then I will talk about logistics innovation, what logistics innovation is, why logistics innovation is important for logistics service providers, and what are the main areas for future development in this industry. Of course, the two areas on which the presentation is focused are ICT and environmental sustainability. And then I will finish with some implication for management of logistics service industry providers. So in this first slide, I try to summarize what have been the main changes and what are the impact on changing customer requirements for logistics services and what are the requirements of today. So we have a very microphone? Yeah. So it is quite difficult. So, you hear me? All right, thank you. All right. So there are a number of very known trends about, globalization of manufacturing and sourcing, supply chain vertical disintegration, changes in consumer behavior, and the time compression that is a quite important trends in logistics and manufacturing. the combination of these trends influenced very strongly the requirements for customer buying logistics service from 3PL company. 3PL is an acronym used by in US that means third-party logistics service provider. So as you can see now, these are the, in my view, the new requirements for transport and logistics service. So we have, if large manufacturing company operating globally, of course they logistics service company have to be globally. So this is the first important changes. So second, reduction in the number of logistics service provider working for a manufacturing company. This is going under the acronym one-stop shopping. That means that the trend is to reduce as much as possible the number of logistics service providers working for one single companies, to the extent that these trends going to have just one single providers, and then we will see in the next slides which kind of providers. Then we have the transports. If we focus on the transport leg, right? So we have that transport service must be much more frequent, punctual, reliable, secure, and cover a wider geographical area as a result of globalization. Requests for logistics service provider, logistics service beyond purely transport and warehousing. And finally, global transport flow required multimodal arrangement in order to better serve the customer. So this is the most important changes and the impact on service provision. So what have been the reaction from the logistics service provider? So in this model, I think it's very easy to understand how the industry changed over the last 30 years. So we start with a position of logistics service provider that is merely execution, so only focused on transport. So in the second wave, we have a different arrangement in which we have a differentiation of services in parallel with increasing outsourcing from the logistics from the manufacturing company. So to arrive at the very last wave, in which we have a very interesting structure of the industry, completely different from the starting point. So we have now a different organization within the logistics industry, in which we have one single provider, 4PL, that is an alliance between a logistics service provider and financial company and management consulting company that is able to serve very large global manufacturing company. And this kind of provider outsourced to a different, subcontracted to a different kind of provider, different type of logistics service, the logistics service. And this kind of provider are able to manage the logistics system of large multinational manufacturer. So you can see here two different parallel trends. The reduction of customer involvement in logistics and the increase of the areas in which logistics companies are involved. Okay, this is the scenario today. The question now is, what's next? What's next in the near future? What we have to expect in terms of, different dynamics of the industry in the future? I think that here the key word is innovation. Okay, so in the future, if this industry will survive and develop, innovation is a mandatory strategy or avenues. Okay, so if we want to try to answer to this question, what will the logistics service market look like in 5 years' time? we have to understanding the concept of innovation. So, in my view, we have to be prepared to answer to 3 questions, sub-questions, associated to the main question, that is, what logistics innovation is, why it is important for logistics company to innovate, and what are the promise area, future area for innovation. I will try to give an answer to each of these questions. Okay, first, defining innovation. Okay, from the academic point of view, it's important to define what innovation is. Okay, we have a very vast literature, especially in the manufacturing environment, about what innovation is. I selected this definition because Rogers, this scholar, worked on a specific aspect of the innovation process, that is diffusion of innovation. And he said that innovation is any idea, practice, or object that is perceived as new by an individual or other unit of adoption. So he focused on the diffusion process of innovation. He was much more interested in understanding how innovation diffused, rather than what innovation is produced, what are the factors, and so on. So this is very interesting to me, because what we need today in this industry is, apart from producing, how to produce innovation, is also how to disseminate innovation in the sector. Okay? So, about what is the definition of logistics, of innovation in logistics, I selected these 2 definitions from some studies. Both definitions put in evidence some critical and interesting elements. The first one, from Flint et al., put in evidence that innovations in logistics have to be very clear outcomes, at least 2: improve operational efficiency or better serve the customer. The second one, in my view, is much more interesting. Why? It put in evidence that innovation in logistics means at least 2 things. First, combining existing function or an existing element of your business in a novel way, or producing and service and providing your services using a completely new technology. These are the 2 very interesting way how to produce innovation, and interestingly, this is exactly what happened in the manufacturing environment. So we have a perfect combination of the concept of innovation, both in manufacturing and in a service industry. Oh, sorry. Okay, how to try to understand what innovation is in logistics and transport. In my view, we can have 2 different perspectives: the perspective of the transportation system and the perspective of the service company. So we can look at this very important process, having in mind the system or having in mind the company, the service providers. If we look at the system perspective, the focus is on the performance of the system. And if we look at this very interesting graph, we see that beyond the containerization, if we look at innovation from the system perspective, after the containerization in freight transport, there are very few innovation, if none. Okay? So, what is much more interesting for me is to have a different perspective of innovation. So moving from the system to the company. And the focus in this case is on the service provision. So innovation can be associated with change in the offering of logistics service and technology. From this point of view, we can apply the famous definition of innovation: incremental innovation and disruptive or radical innovation, depending on how the services are produced and provided to the customer. if we use the existing elements of our service and combine them in a different or in a new way, we have an incremental innovation. So recombining existing technological component or service in a novel way. If we use a completely different technology for supporting the delivery of our service, we are in the radical or disruptive innovation. This is very basic differentiation in innovation, especially in manufacturing. So I'm trying to do is to apply this very famous concept from the manufacturing environment, translating it into the service environment. Okay, this is what my attempt. Okay, so first question, what logistics innovation is? I tried to give some answer to that. Second question, why innovation is important in 3PL? From one point of view, this to answer this question should be very easy, because innovation is important in any company, so in any sector. And as long or very established number of studies demonstrates, the long-term success of a company is inevitably associated with innovation. So, why innovation is important for 3PL seems very quite easy to answer, because innovation is important for logistics service company as any other companies. But what is interesting to note on the basis of the study conducted by this colleague from Germany, he investigated and compared innovation in a number of sectors in Germany, manufacturing, retailing, and services, including transport and logistics. And he discovered very interestingly that the logistics industry was very slow, very, very slow in innovating. So, in comparison to manufacturing industry and other knowledge-intensive industry like consulting company and so on. So, what's the reason why for this? We have to try to give an answer to this question in order to understand why logistics service providers are really slow in innovating. And it is important for us to understand what are the possible strategies for accelerating innovation in this sector. So we have at least two possible strategies: taking market share from competitors or strengthening existing relationship with customers. Innovation will have a substantial impact on both strategies. So the lack of innovation should also be of concern of shipper, as 3PL generally not innovate. This means that shipper overall value chain will suffer. And for both 3PL and customer, the lack of innovation originating from logistics service industry limits the ability to leverage supply chain from competitive advantage. So what is interesting now is to go to have a clear view of what are the characteristics of innovation. In order to understand why logistics service providers are slow, it's interesting to see these 3 points. So 3PL service innovation often arises not because of formal plan or process, like it happens in manufacturing. Time is a key element, because sometimes decisions about innovation have a very strict time window, and important decision needs to be taken in a very short time. So innovation are usually composed of existing tool or processes combined in a novel manner, as I told you before. So, third question, what are the promising areas for future innovation in the logistics service industry? On the basis of a recent survey conducted by the German Logistics Association. They try to ask to a number of managers what are the source of future innovation in logistics and supply chain. Of course, they put at the first place customer expectation, but you see that sustainability and information technology are also very important, and also have the very interesting future perspective for investing in this area. So the rest of my presentation will be focused on ICT and environmental sustainability as areas for future investment and innovation in this sector. Is it clear? Can I go on? All right. First of all, why ICT is important as a source of area of innovation. Again, some years ago in the National Transport Forum, there was a survey conducted on a number of managers or other important stakeholders. And the question was, what will be the area that generate innovation in the future? As you can see, technology has received the highest part of this, to answer to this question. So ICT and technology in general is an area considered very important for innovation in the future. What could be the benefits? Why a company, a logistics company, have to... sorry? Micro. Okay, sorry. Normally I have very... I talk a lot, so the people... Okay, so what are the benefits associated with the adoption of logistics, of information technology by logistics service provider? Okay, I identify a number of these potential benefits. So facilitate integration between supply chain partners, so integration of logistics company in the wider supply chain environment. So allow a better supply chain coordination between logistics service provider and other participants, improving the efficiency of logistics processes, support service diversification and customization, and improve the quality of the service supply. These are the potential benefits associated with the adoption of information technology by logistics service provider. So in this slide, I try to summarize what's the impact of information technology in the sector. And at least I identified 3 different trends: new e-services, new players, and new alliances. New e-service means simply to support traditional service like transportation and warehousing with some information tools or information application. Second, new players means the emerging of this very interesting type of new operators that is working on the internet. So was the transportation e-marketplace, where it is important for this kind of company to put together demand and supply in a very transparent way using internet. There are simply internet portals where a shipper or manufacturing company could try to find the best logistics solution for his own cargo to be delivered. And finally, what I showed you before, the 4PL model. So means really different or transformation in the business model of traditional logistics company. All the people knows in this room that the transport and logistics industry is a very conservative one. So innovation and changing in mind and management approach are very difficult and very slow to change. So this type of development, in my view, have a very interesting perspective in the future, simply because introduce a completely different way in order to work in this sector. So the combination of these trends associated with the use of information technology lead me to conclude that there is a dramatic transformation as a result of the impact of information technology in this sector. So we are moving from a traditional asset-based approach in this sector from a much more knowledge-based approach, in which information and knowledge are the key element for the success of the future logistics company. Here, there are a number of very interesting technology that we hearing in the future, from the physical internet to cloud, blockchain, robotics and automation in logistics. What does it mean? Means, for example, that the warehousing operation are become very, very quick, very, very easy to manage, and much more efficient from the cost perspective, for example. But also we have drones. Probably some of you knows that some large express courier like DHL or FedEx are try to check if this possibility to use drones to deliver a small parcel in a urban environment where there is a very, very big congestion, and delivery on time, that is the key business element for any express courier, are becoming very challenging. And drones probably should have this, or should provide this possibility. But we have a different type of different technology that have a clear impact on the sector, and also some criticalities, because the adoption of technology from one side try to solve some existing problem, but as in any other field, provide some criticalities in terms of adoption, diffusion, impact, especially from the human perspective point of view. Okay, this another slides from the latest 3PL study conducted by US university and another other large logistics provider that is conducted at a global level, and put in evidence what are cheaper view of needed IT-based capability from logistics. So what's the this slide, in other words, summarize what the customer wants from the logistics provider in terms of technology. And you can see that we have transportation management, electronic data interchange, visibility, and so on. So we have a number of requests. So the question now is, in my view, it's a very interesting and important question. So we have a large number of new technology that are in the phase of developing, and the application in the sector is not sure in terms of success of other or application. So I'm particularly interested in try to understand if this is the scenario, what is the reality on the ground. Okay, so we have very promising and interesting development, potential developing, but what is the situation on the ground today? Okay, the same survey that you can download from internet very easily put in evidence that there is a still IT gap. What does it mean? Means that there is a gap between what the shipper, the customer, the manufacturing company wants from their own provider, and what the provider are able to give them in terms of technology. So there is a gap between what the shipper wants and what the logistics service company are able to provide in terms of technology. This is particularly interesting when we try to think about the sites of logistics company. So, as you can read in my slides, the large logistics company have enough resources, technological resources, financial resources, human resources, to be investing in technology. And so the benefits are, they are able to got a lot of benefits. But what about small logistics company? Because for people not specialized, for not being, understanding or confident with this kind of industry, it is possible to think that logistics company are large company. No, the vast majority of logistics company operating in the market are small or very small, as a number of statistics demonstrate very clearly. So, in my view, it's important that the diffusion of innovation, as Roger says some years ago, reach this kind of companies. So, for this reason, I have conducted a research on dissemination of information technology in a small Italian logistics company. And these are, I summarize very, very briefly the main results. So the adoption of ICT capability have the potential to enhance competitive position, potentially enhance the competitive position of small logistics company. But we will see that only the most advanced providers are able to use the most sophisticated ICT tools. ICT is not widely customized, used for customizing logistics service. The most important inhibitors are primarily financial. Human resources and ICT supply side have also an important role in inhibiting ICT investment. These are very brief the result of large research project I conducted on this some years ago. So, what are the implications of my result for logistics, for the manager of a small logistics company? So we have that the use of ICT should be focused on the network rather than the technology per se. Supply chain integration is also very important. Service customization needs to be improved. And also human resources is a key element in this process, because investing in innovation requires some additional investment in updating human and personal skill. Is not only in technological elements, but also in other elements of the logistics process. For example, stock management, customer service, and so on. Another big problem that the small logistics company have is to selecting. As you can see, the range of available technology are very wide. So, how a small company could select the most appropriate tools of application for his own business. This is quite difficult to have this. For this reason, a key role can be played by ICT vendors that could provide some guidance or some guidelines to small logistics company in order to understand which is the most suitable product or application for their own business. Okay, let's move to the second area very quickly. The second area for innovation in the future should be environmental sustainability. Why? Because as a result of the trend I show you in the first slide, right? So if globalization and geographical dispersion of economic activities means that an increasing supply chain fragmentation and transport flow. So transport flow are stretched as a result of globalization and geographical dispersion of economic activities. These immediately produce a higher increasing energy consumption and use of fossil fuels, and this automatically translates in increasing in greenhouse gas emissions. These are the origin of the problem, to the extent that Payek and McKinnon forecasted that almost 80% of the road haulage companies in the European Union will significantly be affected by climate change by 2020. So this is very important to have in mind, that what are the negative effects of the logistics activity and transport activity on the environment. Let's see some data about this, right? So these are data provided by the European Commission, in which we have the greenhouse gas emissions associated to a number of key economic activities. What is in the very bad news of this morning is that while a number of economic sectors, the greenhouse gas emissions are reducing as a result of the implementation of environmental sustainability programs, look what happens for transport. Transport continues to grow. This is a very bad trend that we have to face and try to minimize in the near future. Of course, if we try to look at the breakdown of greenhouse gas emissions by different transport modes, of course, most of the emissions are coming from the road transport. And then we have also railways and total navigation producing a limited number, or limited amount of greenhouse gas emissions. But the limitation of the data that I showed you before, that's that data put together civil and freight transport. Some years ago, the World Economic Forum tried to estimate the impact, negative impact of on the environment of the freight transport only. And then you can see that the forecasts say that freight transport and logistics sector is responsible for 5.5% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So this means that, again, transport and logistics have a substantial negative impact on the environment. These slides give you an outline on the probability associated to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and related costs in a number of, again, economic sector. As you can see, transport have the highest cost for reducing, and one of the smallest percentage of opportunity to reduce it. So this means that in comparison to other economic sector, reduce greenhouse gas emission in the transport is much more difficult than in other sectors, as a result of a number of well-known trends and situations that we have. So, having said that, why a logistics company should invest in environmental sustainability? In my view, there are three different, very good reasons for doing that. The first is differentiation of services. So a logistics company should advertise itself as a green company, and probably it will be selected from the supplier, from the manufacturer, much more easy. Also, green means differentiating your business from your competitors. Then cost reduction, for example, through reducing energy, in much more energy efficiency, access to some subsidies from the government, or tax reduction, or increasing sales. For example, improving your reputation on the market should attract new customers, or enlarging a customer base. And finally, increase customer service level. This is also very important to me, because every single manufacturing company today advertises his own product as a green product. So please explain to me, if I am a manufacturing company advertising my product as a green product, and then discovered that most of my products are transported by road transport, that is the most pollutant transport modes. So today, as a result of the dynamics I showed you before, logistics companies are in the best position in order to support the environmental sustainability programs of the customer. Okay, also in this case, I summarize very briefly the result of some research I conducted on this topic recently. Two types of research, one focused on logistics company, one on the customer, in order to understand what's the dynamic between these two type of companies in relation to environmental sustainability. Let's see first what are the characteristics of the research on logistics service company from the environmental point of view. So in this slide, I have summarized what are the possible area and specific action that a logistics service company could undertake in order to minimize the impact on the environment. And I try to classify this, a number of these according with the impact. The point initiative are those actions that the logistics company undertaken but have predominantly effect within the boundary of the company. This type of action have mostly a supply chain impact rather on the single company. So you have a very different possibilities in terms of possible action that a company could undertake. So try to summarize some evidence from this point of view. Different degree of involvement. What are the result of my research can be summarized in this slide. First, different degree of involvement in green initiative related to the breadth of service offered. What does it mean? If a company provide a large number of services, it's much more likely that he undertaken a green product, a green program, in order to minimize the impact on the environment, in comparison with company that provide one or two services. This company, in my research, have been identified as companies that have no program or very little in terms of green action. Secondly, most of the initiative undertaken in the sample of a company I investigated are point initiative. So are those initiatives that have predominantly an effect within the boundary of the company rather than an effect on the supply chain. And this is quite understandable because the vast majority of the company I investigate are small companies, and they have to put together the two elements: reduce the impact on the environment and simultaneously cost efficiency. Try to put together the two things. Financial, in terms of barriers, financial barriers are the most important one. And also, when the customer is not interested in reducing the environmental impact, it acts as a barrier. And finally, human resources, as again, as in ICT, as I told you before, is a key element in disseminating green culture within the company. So it's quite difficult to qualify my company as a green company if my staff does not believe that environmental sustainability is an important element or strategic element of my business. The second part of my research was focused on the customer side rather than the logistics service provider side. And my research here was very, very, very easy. We investigate at the corporate level, the importance of environmental sustainability at corporate level, purchasing level, and specifically purchasing logistics and transport. So, summarizing what the result, when in the interview with the top manager, they say, environmental sustainability, very, very important for our company. Then when go to interview purchasing manager, they say, environmental sustainability, yes, important, but not the only things. When interview the responsible for buying transport and logistics service, he said explicitly, they said, a number of them said explicitly that we buy service on the basis of cost, reliability, and forget environmental sustainability. So there is a clear, I would say, conflicting attitude between the different level of manufacturing company. And just to conclude, we have this situation emerging from this piece of research. Customers assign very low priority to sustainability when sourcing transport and logistics services. And logistics company look this attitude as a barrier, and it is reflected in the hesitant attitude of logistics company to invest in environmental sustainability. What I detect that there is a clear block between the two areas, and what are the possible strategies to overcome this block in the future in order to have a more sustainable investment in the supply chain. First, from the customer point of view, how to innovate the approach in purchasing transport and logistics services by expanding the cooperation on collaborative packaging design, for example, reorganization of the supply chain, and the environmental collaborative planning and control with other supply chain partners. From the 3PL point of view, from the logistics provider point of view, need to invest in training programs aimed to improving internal skill, at least in two areas. First, data exchange to increase the visibility of a collaborative initiative, and building up environmental performance indicators focused on carbon emission, for example, to be shared with the customer and other supply chain participants. So the objective here is to have possibility to detect or to identify critical information about emissions, and also translate them in a set of key performance indicators that are able to disseminate along the supply chain. So just to conclude, in my view, the future in this area means a convergence between ICT and sustainability. And the key question of the future should be how technology may support the green effort of logistics company in the future. Thank you very much for your attention for this very long presentation. So sorry, I like to talk, and then so the people quite.